Bluff City Media presents Tigers Live with Francis Carlota. Join Francis after every Memphis Tiger game as he breaks down each matchup, player of the game, and upcoming games. Now, let's get to the show. Hey, what's up, everybody? Oh, my name is Kenny Stubblefield. Joined with me is the Memphis Tiger basketball beat writer for Bluff City Media. His name is Roman Cleary.
What's up, Roman? Kenny? What's up, man? How are you? I'm good. Today's been quite stressful, as you can imagine, but it's also been quite eventful. Lots to talk about here. Believe today was my first time in a courtroom in over a decade, which is, that was fun. That was interesting.
You're only 19 years old. So how in the world? No, I'm just joking. So you were 9 years old the last time you were in a courtroom? Is that what you're saying?
No, I was 17. I was 7 years old the last time I was in a courtroom. I'm 21 now. So.
Oh man. Well, listen, I know there's a lot for us to discuss, and obviously it feels like good news, bad news, whatever you want to call it, kind of comes in waves of three, right? So I am expecting Memphis to get hit with something else soon, right? I was telling Anthony Sane, I was just doing the Anthony Sane show with him live at 2:00 on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel every single Monday through Friday. And I was telling him prior, like in the green room, I was like, man, I really like during the basketball season, especially, I really enjoy doing the Tigers live show with you and Francis. And obviously Francis couldn't be here today. He's sick, but we usually kind of tend to take a break during the off season, and we'll come back and do a quick little show. And, during the summer when we're talking about different things, and we had already started discussing like doing a show about the new roster and kind of breaking down the new roster and all this. And then was it Saturday hit? And then today hit with the Big 12 news. And it just feels like whenever we do talk about Tiger stuff during the off season of the two main sports we cover, basketball and football, it's always bad news. And so it's been a crazy time for you. We've been able to talk a lot about recruiting and things like that, but obviously, man, we have to discuss the Sincere Parker news. Before we do that, I want to thank everybody for joining. I know this is kind of, random a posting. We normally aren't live at 5, doing any shows, but I just appreciate everybody who's on here. King Meek says he's got good news. King Meeks, what's your good news, bro?
Yeah, we need some good news here. Even I could use some good news right now.
Yeah, Roman needs good news. He's been in a court. He's been in 201 all day. By the way, do you think, I was watching that video, do you think, like, why do they not like renovate the courtrooms? Those look like they are from like the 1960s, like dark, like it's just, is it as depressing in there as it looks on camera?
Well, again, I have barely been in courtrooms throughout my lifetime, so I really don't have much of a reference to look back on to compare the quality of a courtroom facility. So I suppose they could use some renovation there, but I'm probably not the best person to ask for that.
It feels like they could use some renovation. But Roman, you have obviously been on top of the news since Saturday when the reports came out that Sincere Parker was arrested for aggravated assault. I want you to kind of walk through the timeline, and then we'll have some more questions. And here's the thing, Roman and I discussed doing this. We do want to offer up the comment section. If you have questions, if you have anything that you want like Roman is not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a prosecutor, anything like that, but we maybe can help answer some questions. But Roman, kind of walk us through the timeline of what we know about the Sincere Parker situation.
Yeah, so first off, Sincere was actually arrested Friday. He was arrested on Friday. They released a warrant for his arrest on Thursday after his alleged victim met with police for a second time on July 15th. I'm kind of going backwards with the timeline here. I'll get back on track in a second. But yeah, he was arrested on Friday, and then his bond was officially set early Sunday morning. And we're talking like 3-4 a.m. on Sunday morning at 120,000, 75,000 it was dropped to later on. and he was released on that bond later today, or earlier today rather. But in terms of the timeline of this whole situation, so the police affidavit states that Sincere Parker allegedly, more or less, beat up his girlfriend in his downtown Memphis apartment. This was apparently. This was, all allegedly as of now. Obviously, by the way, we want to preface everything we say here during this show with alleged. These are all allegations right now. So I'm going to get some pretty gruesome details, but we have to preface everything with allegations first off. So with that out of the way, the police affidavit states, according to the alleged victim, Sincere Parker's now ex-girlfriend, I suppose, this was apparently an argument in Sincere Parker's downtown Memphis apartment that turned physical. Um, and apparently during the confrontation, the affidavit alleges that Parker pushed her, struck her in the face, choked her, and then proceeded to break her iPhone. This caught the woman was allegedly left with both bruising and bleeding in her mouth. The very disturbing and serious accusations here. Obviously, Parker was charged with both aggravated assault, a felony aggravated assault, and a misdemeanor vandalism of under $1,000. The iPhone that he broke is valued at $885. So that leads us to today, where he had his first court hearing. This was simply an arraignment where Judge Greg Gilbert just simply read out the charges that we already knew about, and again, got the bail situation sorted. A hearing was scheduled for next Tuesday, so Sincere will appear in court again, not tomorrow, but next Tuesday. It was originally supposed to be tomorrow, but it was pushed back to next Tuesday. And then I got the opportunity to spend a few minutes with his attorney, Arthur Horn, after the hearing, and we got some a bit more insight, at least from Sincere's side of things, that kind of shed a bit more light, on this investigation. Horn alleges that Sincere was not brought in for questioning whatsoever when these accusations were brought forth. Oh, by the way, they're a big talking point with a lot of people for this whole investigation. I forgot to get to this. Is that the incident happened allegedly on May 27th, but the allegations were at first not brought forth to police officers until June 12th, and then the woman met with officers again on July 15th. Now, again, I'm not going to, reveal her identity or anything like that. We're not out here to do that. But this woman does live out of state. She does not live in Tennessee. So if you're looking for something of an explanation as to why there may be delays, you can perhaps point to that, or more skeptical avenues, or whatever. So yeah, apparently Sincere was not brought in for any sort of questioning during the process that ultimately led to him being arrested. As of now, it's probably important to note that Sincere is still an active member of the Memphis basketball program. According to his attorney, this current legal battle does not affect his status right now. The way that Arthur Horn put it, Memphis is going to let the situation play out before they make any sort of major decisions on Sincere's status with the team. Some conditions of Sincere's bond, which is again $75,000. That's the bond that he had to pay in order to get released from jail earlier today. He's obviously prohibited from any contact with the victim. He's prohibited from using alcohol or controlled substances, prohibited from using firearms, uh, prohibited communication with the victim via social media, and he is also subjected to GPS tracking. Now, it's important to note that this GPS tracking will not prevent him from leaving Tennessee or the United States of America. So if you're wondering, is this going to affect Sincere's status for road games or the Tigers tournament in the Bahamas coming up in November? No, it will not. uh, assuming that these conditions of the bond are still an issue or relevant by that time. So a lot of details, obviously, to sort through here. I'm sure we'll get more in depth as we take questions and just continue to discuss. But that's something of the gist of what we got here so far.
Yeah, obviously, not good, not good details that you had to just express, and I appreciate you going through those. It's tough, man. It's a tough situation. I'll be honest with you, man. Like obviously, Sincere Parker's recruitment to the University of Memphis has been, widely talked about, nationally, especially because more than likely, I think the way that people described how Sincere plays and what he does, that he was going to be the guy that was going to be expected to, kind of fill PJ Haggerty's shoes for this team this year, right? Like you have the backcourt of Doug McDaniel and PJ and Sincere Parker, and so obviously, I think naturally people's first reaction was, crap! Like, what does this mean for the University of Memphis basketball team? My initial response to it, Roman, was different. It was I was seeing red for a little bit, man. I was pretty upset because it's just the idea of ever putting your hands on a female, especially one that you are not even especially, but a person that you're connected to romantically, just seems inexcusable, in any situation. And I guess the initial, a lot of the response that I saw online was a confusion about like why the reporting, why it happened on a certain day, and why it took so long for the report to be made, and then why did it take so long for the police to finally make an arrest? And I think the real question is why did it happen on this date and take multiple weeks to come out to the police for that report? I do recognize that if you're looking for a reason to say, to excuse what happened, or to even say that, or was being alleged to have happened, I think those are that is an excuse or a reason that people use for a lot of different things. That why did it take so long? If this was this bad of a situation as it's being described, like why didn't she immediately go to the police? And I guess my response to that is man, like you never know. Number one, she is an out of town person, so she's not from Memphis. And then number two, you never know. We don't know anything about what happened in the interim, in the time between when the actual alleged assault happened to the time that she went to the police. There's levels of and this is coming from somebody who's experienced this before with, helping people as they deal with other kinds of abusive type of situations. There's levels of shock and trauma and trying to work through kind of like what you experience, getting your mind wrapped around it, and then knowing kind of what to do afterwards. Does that make sense? And so there's a part of me that I saw the dates of like when it happened, when it allegedly happened, and when she went to the police, and that to me was not as big of a red flag as it was for some people out there. What about for you, as you kind of, as you saw this and even saw some of the conversation unfolding online? Like, what were your thoughts about those dates in particular, the date that it allegedly happened to the time that she went to the police?
Well, I didn't really make any preliminary judgments based off of the dates themselves, to be honest. I still think we're in too early of a process, and too early in the process overall to really make any overlapping judgment either way with this particular situation. Before today's hearing, one thing that I did find somewhat damning for Sincere's case is that the police, according to the affidavit, have photographic evidence of the cellular device that he allegedly broke during the altercation. Police asked to take a photo of the woman's broken iPhone, and she was able to provide that. So, of course, there are ways of showing cops a broken iPhone that don't involve it being destroyed by a 6'4", basketball player. But that was somewhat concerning to me.
Yeah.
And, but then we get to today, and again, these are just comments from Sincere side of things via his attorney Arthur Horn. Again, a lot of his comments to us today focused on, the fact that Sincere was not called for questioning
Yeah.
before he was arrested. That was a lot of what he talked about.
Is that not
This
weird?
is
Is that
a
not
this.
weird to you? That's not weird. That's a little weird to me that they didn't bring
Oh
him in
yeah,
for
no,
questioning.
it is definitely weird. This is a quote from Horn that I have in my story over on my Substack. Quote: Usually, when people go and talk to the police call in the alleged perpetrator in to talk to them. In this case, that wasn't done. If it hadn't been done, we would have shown them text messages and videos. His mother was on FaceTime when the whole incident happened, which is fortunate for us, our defense, Mr. Parker, and his innocence. So I feel pretty strongly about this case resolving favorably. I have no idea why he wasn't called in for questioning.
Yeah.
So that's one of the big takeaways that I think we had from the limited amount of minutes that we had with Arthur Horn earlier today.
Yeah, I hearing um Arthur Horn talk today, I read your article on your Substack, and then I watched the video of him speaking. There was very little said that surprised me in terms of of course a defense attorney is going to say we have evidence to dispute the claims, right? And they have every right. And that is one thing that I think um is lost in, not lost in this, but we do um you know I think there's been people that have been like, well, he's innocent until proven guilty, and 100% like that is why he is going through the process that he's going through right now. And that's, that is to be expected. And I do think we should absolutely, as we discuss these things, consider, consider, yes, innocent till proven guilty, but at the same time, that standard is really for the court and the judicial system, right? Like, we should feel the same way. We should respond the same way. But I think one of the frustrations that I'm seeing is that there's a level of like using that phrase innocent till proven guilty to then turn around and say, well, then let's dispute, like, let's use our limited understanding of what we know about the situation and demean the young lady that made the accusation. And I think that is a step too far for me in terms of what's going on here, because it just feels, because, and I think part of it is because Sincere Parker is a member of your favorite basketball team, there is a level of, we want to believe what he's saying. We want to believe that this couldn't be true. And honestly, for his sake, I hope that it's not. I hope that he gets the chance to tell his story. But I reject the idea that, that the timing of it, the way that it went down, even the things that Arthur Horn said today in his media availability, doesn't, to me, sway me one bit in terms of saying, well, clearly she's a liar, right? Like, clearly, because that's what you're having to say about this young lady, is that she's a liar. And if she's a liar, I hope she gets found out. And I hope that there's some kind of, something that could happen for Sincere to get to make him whole again. But I just, the things that he said about the evidence that they have, of course, a defense attorney is going to say that. He is vigorously going to defend his client in a courtroom proceeding, and he's going to vigorously defend his client publicly. Like, that is what a lawyer is supposed to do. I did find it odd that they mentioned that the police never once questioned Sincere. Like, that doesn't make much sense outside of the fact that what evidence do they have, right? Because here's the process. And I explained this on Twitter, because I think that there is there's certain people that are saying don't rush to judgment on this. And I agree. I don't think we need to rush to judgment, but I think there's some reality to the situation that when this young lady went to the police and presented her case, like, this is what happened to me. Here's the evidence, whether it be pictures, whether it be, pictures of injuries that she might've had on her body, anything like that. There was enough there for the police to then say, let's open an investigation into figuring out what happened here. And you would think that part of that investigation would be to talk to the alleged perpetrator of the crime, but maybe they didn't feel like they had to. Maybe they felt like they had enough evidence, because then, like I said, on Twitter, the process is then they compile their investigation, they put together their evidence, and then they go present it to a district attorney in the city of Memphis. And that district attorney will then decide, okay, what has to happen here? Should we bring charges? Should we file for an arrest warrant? What should we do? Part of that evidence is clear that they decided this wasn't a domestic violence situation. This was an aggravated assault, because what takes it from a domestic violence situation to an aggravated assault is that escalating factor of strangulation. And that's one of the claims that was made in this, in the police report, was that Sincere Parker used his hands to strangulate this young lady. Because of that evidence, because of that, whatever they saw, the district attorney made the decision to file charges, or to ask for an arrest warrant on the charges of aggravated assault. Well, the district attorney then has to turn around and hand it to a judge for that arrest warrant. And that judge has to make the decision. Is there enough evidence here to grant an arrest warrant? And the judge saw that there was enough evidence. So there are things here that there should absolutely be concern on Sincere's side that this is not going to end well. But like we said, and like what Arthur Horn said today, he's going to get his day to defend himself. And I hope that, for his sake, if this is a total lie, that's found out, and that he gets to go and do the things that he loves to do, and that's play basketball and be free. So I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but it has been wild to me to see the levels of automatic rush to judgment that this young lady is lying, and the idea of her being crazy and all this kind of stuff is just, I'm not a fan of how she's being portrayed, if that makes sense.
I concur with you in the sense that I disagree with the immediate rushing to judgment that the woman, the alleged victim in this situation, is a liar. But I can also, I think, emphasize a little bit with the people rushing to those judgments, because a lot of those people are young men. and as a fellow young man in this country, I mean, I can attest, like, it's a very difficult time to be a young man here in the United States. Young men across the board feel like they're being targeted in a variety of ways, in a variety of avenues. And a lot of men have been indicted in different, domestic violence and sexual assault situations against women that have ultimately proven to be false claims and not true. But despite that, they have significantly derailed the lives of different young men and young male athletes in particular. Terrence Shannon, what his whole career was derailed for months on end because of a false claim last year. Now, of course, he should be able to just go on with his basketball career just fine now, but that cost him a very significant amount of time. And when you're seeing all these different things, I can see why you're going to rush to skepticism there. Now, again, I don't think that is enough of an excuse to completely dismiss the alleged victim side of the situation. I think we need to be as neutral as possible, this early in the process, and fully consider both sides. Obviously, the woman's side of things hit at the forefront over the weekend, and we got a bit more of Sincere's side here today. So I really think all we can do at this juncture is see how this plays out, because I imagine it's only going to get more complicated from here.
100%. Yeah, I definitely don't think this is going to be one of those situations where it's just, you just forget about it, right? Like this is going to be something that I think kind of hangs in the balance, right? Like hangs in the balance for a while. And unfortunately for the University of Memphis and the Tiger basketball program, this is going to be something that hangs over this season more than likely. And that's disappointing. obviously coming off the success of last year with a brand new team, basically, there was expectation that, and I think there still is expectation that Sincere Parker is going to be a huge part of whether it's success or whether it's a failure of a year in terms of wins and losses for the Tiger basketball program. It felt really odd on Saturday to start discussing the overall implications of what this means for the University of Memphis and the Tiger basketball team. But I think it's a fair place to go now because Arthur Horn talked about it today in his press conference. He talked about the University of Memphis and kind of maybe how they're going to proceed and how to handle this. Do you have the quote in front of you exactly? I don't want to mess up any words that he said. Do you have the quote in front of you about what the University of Memphis is going to do? I can find it real quick, but I didn't know. If
Yeah, no. Here's the quote: "They're going to let the case play itself out before they make a decision on his status with the team. So for now, he's fine. As long as I think everything works out favorably, he should be fine." That's more or less the quote.
Yep. What are your thoughts on this? What is this? Is this? I've seen a ton of people in the initial response to this on Saturday once again say, talk about the drama surrounding the University of Memphis Tiger basketball program over the years, especially according to some, the drama of the Penny Hardaway era of the Memphis basketball program. Does this, in your opinion, is this a black eye on the basketball program and Penny Hardaway?
This specific case, no, because I don't know what Penny Hardaway or anyone in the program besides Sincere Parker, if he did the things he is accused of doing, could have done to stop this from happening. I mean, Sincere is a guy who had no criminal history whatsoever prior to his signing with the University of Memphis. And I suppose that, there could have been some better character vetting there, again, in the event that he did these things. But it's tough. It's also difficult to do that because the guys you're talking to and trying to evaluate character before you recruit them and you sign them, they're most likely going to be people with that player's best interest in mind.
100%.
You're getting the best picture of everybody you're recruiting, so it's just super difficult to evaluate, the characters, personalities of these guys. It's a lot more difficult to do it these days than it was before because, back in the day when it was all centered around high school recruiting, you would sit down in their homes, you would talk with them for hours on end, you would talk to their parents, you would visit their school, you would do this, that, and the third. It was more of a long relationship building process. Yeah. Now it's more of a quicker exchange. How much can you get me? Because if you can't get the certain amount, you're not even in the conversation. And it's the portal and it's moving fast, so we got to make a decision quickly. So it's just a different time of recruiting and character vetting in college basketball right now. So I really don't think that Memphis could have done much to stop this. Now, Memphis's reaction here, I think, is a whole different story.
Yep.
Let's say that this case progresses further and it's looking worse and worse for Sincere Parker. The black cloud is not going away, and more stuff is coming out that is further indicting him, if you will. We've seen situations where not just Penny Hardaway, but Memphis basketball in general has stuck by individuals with questionable character, and it ultimately derails seasons because that kind of stuff can rub a locker room the wrong way. That can cause legitimate issues. Like I think back to 2005 when the best player was Sean Banks, who was an official, labeled gang member by New Jersey police, and yet John Calipari was starting him on the court every night. And then you move up to a situation a couple years ago with Mikey Williams, who was accused of doing various atrocious things, mainly firing multiple rounds, multiple bullets at a moving car filled with 6 people. And Penny stuck by him for months and refused to remove him from the program and tried everything he could to get him admitted onto the team, even though it didn't work. I imagine that rubbed much of that locker room the wrong way. And everyone here knows exactly how that season turned out. So that I think this is going to be a real test for not just Penny Hardaway, but also Ed Scott, because Ed Scott, from the moment that he came into this building as the new athletic director,
Yep.
one of the big things that he has preached is we want Memphis to be seen in a better light. Like we do not want Memphis to be seen as the troublemaking drama program any longer. You know, the character, the culture, and the image has to improve. And these are situations where your decision making directly impacts that. Again, in the event that Sincere Parker is, evidently guilty of doing the things that he's accused of doing, or there is overwhelming evidence to suggest as much.
Yeah, it is a tough situation for both of them, right? For Ed Scott and for Penny Hardaway. Obviously you talked about the vetting process earlier, and it's true, like, especially, and I think it needs to be said. Arthur Horn said it, you've said it, and I'll say it again. You're talking about a young man who does not have a criminal record. There is no past history of this. That doesn't mean it hasn't happened before. That doesn't mean he hasn't shown, signs of these kinds of things before, if what he's being accused of is true. But it is very fair, I think, and I think it's right of us to, like, accentuate the idea that this is not somebody who's coming into the program with a criminal past, who has this sketchy past or sketchy history, or interactions with police and interactions with these types of things. But it absolutely does put Penny Hardaway in a really, really tough spot. One thing we do know about Penny Hardaway, and you highlighted specifically the Mikey Williams situation. Penny Hardaway is one of those individuals that stands by his people, right? He stands by the people that he is close to, and he is sometimes to a fault, and sometimes it ends up working out for him when he is that loyal to those people. I think we've seen it in multiple different areas. And so when I saw this news on Saturday that Sincere was arrested and that he was in 201 for this, my response to it was, well, we already kind of have a blueprint of how Penny Hardaway will probably try to handle this on his own. The question I had was what will the University of Memphis do? Because the difference between this situation and the Mikey Williams situation is that Mikey wasn't on campus yet. And so the University of Memphis didn't have really, outside of just shutting down his recruitment as a whole, didn't have a way to, to remove Mikey from the situation or remove Penny Hardaway from the situation. I think ultimately Mikey transferred because he couldn't get cleared at Memphis. And I think there's a reason that's partially a reason why is some of the issues that he was having, in San Diego. The difference between that situation and this is that Sincere's on campus. He's here. He's a student at the University of Memphis. And so there is a code of conduct and how you're supposed to, handle yourself as a University of Memphis student and as a member of the basketball program. What are your expectations as this continues to go down this path of, probably court hearings and evidentiary hearings and, whatever it may be? Do you see Sincere being a part of this team this year?
I mean, I don't think there's any other answer right now than a tentative yes. Again, because it's super early in the process still, so we really don't know how far these court proceedings will even go, because for all we know, the woman could come in and drop the charges tomorrow and the whole thing's over.
Right.
So, yeah. We're probably still at a stage where that is potentially on the table. I'm not suggesting that's going to happen. I haven't heard any intel that is even remotely close to happening. I'm just laying out a possibility. That's pure speculation on my part. But again, we are just so green in this particular case, in this particular situation, that I think it would be unfair of me to assume anything other than, yes, Sincere Parker is going to be on the team, at least as of now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with what Arthur Horn said today, and I wonder if the University of Memphis wanted him to say those things, but it seems clear that they are, according to what Arthur Horn said, they're sticking by Sincere, and they're going to let this play out. and see what happens. But um, yeah, it will make for an interesting covering of the team this year. I think as this continues down the path. How do you think if you had to I'll let this be the last question I ask about Sincere. Um, how should Memphis fans respond to Sincere Parker this year? Um, should there be a you play for us, you score 20 points a game, boom, you're our guy, or should it be kind of like arm's length, kind of, man, hey, thanks for suiting up, but man, you've got this over here that it's really not a good situation that you're being accused of, and how do you think Memphis fans should respond? I know we don't want to get into I don't want to put you in a weird spot to say this is how another adult man should respond or adult woman should respond to a situation, but what are your thoughts on it?
That's tough, man. That's
Tough.
tough.
Yep.
Um, I'm not sure how they should react because again, we don't know where this is going. We still have no idea where this is going at this point. But I can tell you how they're going to react most likely if it gets on the court because I think he's going to be a fantastic player in Memphis this season. I think he's going to lead the Tigers in scoring in the event that he plays. He's far and away their best bucket getter. He is someone who I think has been very, underutilized in terms of his minutes and his usage. I think if you put someone like him of his caliber and his talent in a starting role, especially in a conference as pathetic as the American, he's going to put up numbers. So I think if Sincere makes it to the court this year, that's what you will see. So therefore, I believe that fans will react to him in the first way you described. That's how I think, and that's how they probably will react.
Yeah.
But as for how they should react, I don't know if I'm in a proper space to make that determination right now.
Probably one of the harder questions I've ever asked you because it's really not a fair question to ask. But yeah. All right, let's move on. Obviously, when we first initially said we were going to do this impromptu Tigers Live show, the Big 12 news hadn't hit yet. But there's a ton of reporting kind of this afternoon. Was it Ross Dellinger that put it out first?
Yeah, it was Ross Dellinger, and then Brett McMurphy dropped the big bomb that I kind of use as my lead in my story. $250 million offer by Memphis to the Big 12. Completely rejected. The Big 12 is, quote, not interested. That is reporting from On3's Brett McMurphy there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, man! What a crazy! I didn't know what was going on. I was getting ready for the Anthony Sane show, and I all of a sudden my phone blew up, and I was like, "What the hell is happening right now?" But there's been reporting out, and I think the Ed Scott, one of the things he said when he first came on board at the University of Memphis was that his one of his main goals, his main stated intentions was to get Memphis into a Power Four conference. Obviously last year, the Pac 4 at that point, now it's Pac whatever it is, the Pac had made an offer last year to the University of Memphis, and Ed Scott did this pretty viral press conference where he basically laid it out and just said it didn't make any sense financially for the University of Memphis. Yeah, you were there for that. And I think once it was laid out to the public, most Memphis fans were like, yeah, that probably wouldn't have been a good look for the University of Memphis. And then reporting drops a couple of months ago, maybe a month ago, that there were some reported interest between revisiting the Pac conference with Memphis football and Memphis basketball, potentially going to the Big East for basketball. And was it the rest of the Olympic sports going to the Big East as well? I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, on that front, I haven't heard anything about the Pac-12 in months, like since probably September. I mean, I heard about the Big East stuff on that end for sure, but there's really been nothing in terms of Memphis and the Pac-12 as far as I know. And Ed Scott confirmed as much when he talked with us last month during the availability designed to promote the stadium renovations, but of course, other questions and other topics were inevitably brought up during his conversation with reporters. And the quote was, "Nothing has changed unless, besides the fact that Pete Thamel wrote an article." That's really all that's changed between Memphis and the Pac-12. That's more or less true, as far as I know. So, I mean, maybe those discussions or talks will be revisited at some point, but as far as I know, that has not taken place yet.
Yeah, during that time period, I was hearing things, and people were calling me and talking to me, and one of the things that I heard was that yes, Ed Scott has been since the beginning of this year, specifically after like during the Final Four time period, all that kind of that Ed Scott was 100%. His main everyday duty was to present Memphis to one of those Power Four conferences for potential, conference realignment. And the Big 12 was once again brought up with that, and I think it's been widely reported and talked about on Memphis airwaves all over nationally that Memphis has always looked at the Big 12 as a preferred destination in terms of conference realignment. Clearly, right? Like I think that
Yeah,
would be ultimately where the Tigers would like to end up. Um,
but
on
they
the
won't
top,
end up there.
yeah, on the Tigers Untapped podcast a couple of weeks ago, we talked about that there was some very clear signs that there were some things happening that was the main focus of Ed Scott, that's what he was looking to do. And all of a sudden it just dropped the bomb today that the Big 12 said no. We can report here, and I think it's okay to do that now, that this has been Bill Hargrave and Ed Scott have been literally in every single office of every single Big 12 president over the last few months, pitching the University of Memphis
Yes.
athletic department to those Big 12 presidents. And unfortunately, today it was announced that the Big 12 is not interested. And there's a few Ross Dellinger. I unfortunately don't have the initial one, but it's basically what you discussed, the Brett McMurphy thing said too as well. But the proposal that was offered by the University of Memphis to these Big 12 presidents and to Brett Yormark was that it was described as a no risk concept. The school would number one
Yes.
take zero distribution for 5 years. That distribution, that zero distribution, is basically any of the revenue that comes in from bowl games, TV revenue, everything that literally it kind of goes into one big pot, and it's split between the schools by conference. And so when you hear Memphis talk about their distribution from the American Conference last year was, I think, $8 million or something like that, $8 to $10 million. Well, in the Big 12, it's a lot more than that. There's a lot more money because there's a big TV deal attached to the Big 12. And so they would take zero distribution for 5 years. Number two, add in sponsorships as much as $3 million annually to each Big 12 school's coffers.
Yeah, more than $150 million total.
Which is basically a fancy way of saying every Big 12 school would receive $3 million annually from the University of Memphis due to sponsorships. And then number three,
this is the wild one right here.
Subjected. This is crazy, dude.
Right, yeah, that's this is the wild one. Subjected to expulsion after in 2030-31 if the Big 12 deems that Memphis is not bringing enough value to the league. That one is insane. That's the insane part to me. It's not the 250 million. It's that you are going to subject yourself to potential expulsion from your league that you've been striving to get in for over a decade at this point. The fact that Memphis is willing to open themselves up to that specifically, along with this entire offer, I think signifies just how serious Memphis is about, not just advancing to the Power Four, but straight up getting out of the American Conference. It's no secret that the American is becoming more and more barren with talent every single year, and that Memphis is really the only relevant brand the league has. And Memphis knows that if it wants its athletic department to reach its full potential, they have to advance higher. And even something like the Pac-12, you're more or less getting into what the AAC, what the American Conference used to be when Houston, Cincinnati, and UCF were in the league, and it's probably a worse version of that. How much is that advancing Memphis, especially considering that Memphis wouldn't be making as much money from that deal as they're currently making in the American right now? So there's no real benefit I think, for Memphis going to the Pac-12 at the moment. So, trying to get into the power conference structure, whether that be the Big 12 or the ACC, that's probably the more, the preferable option. And I think that's why Memphis is being as aggressive as they are in trying to secure a deal here. In the Big 12, this is, I think, the third or fourth time in the past, 10 years or so that Memphis has tried. They got turned down in 2016 when the Big 12 ultimately opted to not expand altogether. They got passed up for Houston, Cincinnati, and UCF, and I guess BYU a few years ago. And obviously the big bomb here today, which is probably the most emphatic rejection of them all. $250 million, and you still say no to a program that features really, really prominent football and men's basketball programs that I think are more than good enough to be at that level.
I think the part of it that is the most confusing to me is like what on a business side of things, Roman, how does this make any sense for the Big 12 to turn it down? Like you're literally
you're turning down FedEx, Lowe's, AutoZone. Here's the thing, Kenny. Memphis is not a college town. It's a big business city. There is so much money to be made in Memphis, Tennessee. Why do you think there are so many, filthy rich business owners here? Why do you think so many businesses that have profited billions and billions of dollars and have revolutionized industries here in America, why do you think they're based here? Why do you think Elon Musk is doing stuff here?
Yeah.
There is so much money to be made in Memphis. There's more money in Memphis than Manhattan, Kansas, or Stillwater, Oklahoma, or Fort Worth, Texas.
I mean, what is it?
Adding that asset to the Big 12 at the discount that Memphis is offering you?
Yeah.
It just seems a little odd. I think we'll get more of the full picture about this in the coming days. There's probably bigger reasons that have yet to be revealed or reported, but at the offset, just off the jump, it's just somewhat mind-boggling to me as well.
Like it just doesn't make sense to me. Like you mentioned Elon Musk, and I said this on the Anthony Sane show, and I stand by this. When Elon Musk went on his Twitter account prior to his ownership of Twitter and said he was going to make an offer to Twitter, to its board of directors, to potentially buy that platform from Jack, whatever his name is, who and the board of directors. Initially, it was met with skepticism and like, absolutely not, no way, the Twitter can't do this, like this kind of stuff. And then he put the offer out there and what the price tag was for Twitter. And the conversation amongst non-financial people like me and you was still, no way, absolutely, he can't do this. Twitter can't go to Elon Musk. The majority of people said that. But the business financial world turned around and said, yo, Twitter's board of directors cannot turn this down. Like, it would be egregious. It would be against every idea of capitalism, of free market, of all the, it would absolutely fly in the face of every good business practice that we know if Twitter says no to this offer, because it is substantially bigger and deeper than what we thought it would be. And so ultimately the board of directors said yes. Like, okay, yeah. So now Elon Musk owns X. He's turned it into X. But I just don't understand how, like, if you make the analogy, how does the Big 12, Brett Yormark, the Big 12 presidents, how do they go to bed at night knowing that they turned down this, as Ross Dellinger, who is not tied to Memphis or the Big 12, in terms of his reporting, how is he, like, this was deemed a no risk opportunity. How do you say no to that? I don't understand. Is it like there's got to be something deeper going on that we don't know about? And there's a lot of these tropes out there about Memphis being this and that, and people looking at Memphis as this crime-ridden city and all this. And I just don't think that it's, I cannot rock with that idea that Brett Yormark and the rest of the Big 12 presidents would say no to a no-risk deal where everybody makes money except for Memphis. in 5 years. And then Memphis gives them the right to say, hey, listen, we're going to take your money after 5 years, and then we can expel you if we want to, right? Like we can just get rid of you if you want to after 5 years. How do they say no to that unless there's something deeper going on? Is there a school in the Big 12 that says that's absolutely like, hell no, we don't want Memphis in the Big 12? Like I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty well known that Texas was that school for a long time. But Texas is not there anymore. Right? So it has to go. I guess there is some sort of, larger discussion and larger situation that has to be going on there, because Memphis, realistically speaking, for at least from an infrastructure perspective, is doing everything it can do.
Man,
It's they're renovating Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium.
Yep.
Starting next year, they are expected to have the full revenue sharing cap of $20.5 million.
Do you understand? I don't think people understand. People that are watching this, do you
in the AAC, Memphis is expected to reach the full cap, the same cap that Alabama's reaching.
Do you understand that the AAC is one of the only conferences in the entire country that had to put a bottom cap on the revenue sharing? That if their schools don't reach this amount, they can get expelled because they didn't do enough. And Memphis is saying, we're going to hit the literal cap that every SEC, Big 12, ACC, Big 10 school are fighting for. The $20.5 million being spread in in revenue sharing across the board to its athletes. Memphis will be there next year.
Yeah, all the different like NIL issues and revenue sharing issues that Memphis basketball had recruiting, this offseason,
they're done.
Those should largely be gone, you would think.
They're gone.
Like, because 20.5 million total revenue sharing, Memphis basketball and Memphis football are easily getting the biggest chunks of that. So they should have ridiculous rosters next season, especially compared to the rest of the AAC or the rest of the American Conference. It was just rebranded today. So I'm still, training my lips here to stop saying AAC.
Speaking of the logo, speaking of the American Conference, what'd you think about the new Microsoft Paint logo? Did you like it?
There's a new Microsoft Paint logo?
The new logo looks like it was made in Microsoft Paint. Did you ever use Microsoft Paint?
No, I don't use Microsoft much besides like Word.
It's a joke, Roman. The Microsoft Paint,
and I guess PowerPoint.
Microsoft Paint is what my son uses, and he's 11 years old. So it's just super. It's just crazy to me how I just cannot understand like what the deciding factor was by the Big 12 to say no to this offer. But I want to even flip it a little bit even more, and we'll get out of here. I want to keep this under an hour, but we'll get out. But the idea, like, shout out to Bill Hargrave and Ed Scott for just pushing all the chips in on the table and saying, we are going to go after this as hard as we can, and we are going to get titans of industry involved in the University of Memphis, supporting and sponsoring what the University of Memphis athletic department and the school are doing. And I think I've seen reports, obviously people frustrated and upset about, Memphis people upset and frustrated about this situation happening with the Big 12 today, decrying like the fall of the Memphis athletic department and that it's going to be dead soon and all this kind of stuff. And I'm saying, how can you look at this offer that Memphis is willingly giving to the Big 12 and say that, man, the University of Memphis under Bill Hargrave and Ed Scott are in a fantastic position to really open a lot of eyes and open a lot of ears to what the University of Memphis can become in terms of support, in terms of these other Power 4 schools. If you're the ACC, do you not automatically call today and go, hey, can we get a hold of that? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's wild to me that Ed Scott and Bill Hargrave were able to do what they did in this regard, and just shout out to them for going all in, right? And trying to make this happen. But we'll see, man. We'll see. Crazy. Sounds like we're going to be in the American Conference for a little bit longer.
Yeah, that's definitely what it sounds like. Memphis, now that they have, starting next season, full $20.5 million revenue sharing. Now that they like, they already have far more money than any other team in the American. That's basically going to get multiplied now.
Yeah.
By like times 2, times 3. The roster talent, particularly in football and men's basketball, that Memphis is going to have compared to the rest of the AAC starting next season, starting in 2026-27.
Yeah.
Just get ready. Get ready. Because if Memphis properly allocates those resources, it's going to be a bloodbath.
Man. Well, I'm waiting for a third thing to happen because everything happens in threes. So we had Sincere on Saturday, the Big 12 today. What else do you think is the anything else really bad about to happen?
I mean, it's you never know. You never know on this beat. You just never know. Always got to keep your eyes peeled.
I know this is your first beat, but man, shout out to you for covering all of it. You're awesome. You do such a good job covering everything. And I'm sure once the next shoe drops, you'll be right there right there with it, ready to knock it out of the park. But anyway, we've been going 57 minutes, so let's shut this thing down. Roman, where can folks find you at, man? Where can they read your stuff? Where can they find you on Twitter, on X, and all that?
So at least for the somewhat foreseeable future, my stories are still on my Substack. They're still for Bluff City Media, but writing them on my Substack, at least for the time being. But beyond that, you can follow me on Twitter/X at ROA Clear. Social media handle is the same everywhere else. In season, I do digital, content as well, surrounding the games and whatever else may be going on in the middle of the year. And I appear here on Tigers Live and other BCM shows sometimes. I'm all over the place right now.
Yes, you are. Thank you, man. I'm looking forward to getting Tigers Live started back up. We're going to, Roman and Francis and I were talking about doing another podcast soon where we discuss the new roster, kind of breaking it down. And so we'll do that soon. But shout out to you, man. I love the Tigers Live show. I love all the stuff that you do for Bluff City Media. Y'all follow Roman, ROA Clear. You see his Twitter handle right there. Follow him everywhere, all over the place. His Substack is linked in his X account. He is the man. Roman, shout out to you, man. Thank you for everything.
Thank you very much for having me on. We'll see what else happens in the future.
See how it plays out. We'll see y'all later. Y'all have a great night. Thank you for listening to this episode of Tigers Live. If you enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. For comprehensive coverage of all things Memphis sports, head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co and find out how you can become an insider. We will see you back here next time.